All right, it looks like we're filtering back in. Can you hear me better now? I'm just posting the link again online. Hey, all right. I'll be perfectly honest. I have this great iPhone, but I don't want to upgrade, and maybe it's time. Okay, so let's get back to what I was talking about. So I don't have any really huge updates. Um, our biggest update is our tier change. On Sunday, San Bernardino County changed to the red tier and Riverside County changed to the red tier. And what that means for us is secondary schools are now eligible to reopen. So our teams are still collaborating on a schedule for our secondary schools that's going to meld really well with our elementary schools. We just need to make sure that each of our school sites, because there's there are families that have students that are in elementary school and they're going to have students that are in our secondary schools, and we need to make sure that the schedule isn't going to be too disruptive to the already difficult transportation issues that everybody's sort of identified online. So between that and then making sure that there's enough space as our students are walking through the campuses, because each student at the secondary level has a different schedule, and they're looking at whenever they start to break apart from their first period or fourth period, whatever period they're going to start when they come in person. How do we maintain that stable group? How do we ensure that we're still able to do contact tracing? How do we make sure that there's enough space for our students as they're walking through hallways, as they're walking across campus? It's all the same things that we're doing as staff right now, but we need to ensure we can continue to do it with our students on site. We're all extremely optimistic that we're going to have something for you, hopefully very soon. That way you can go into spring break prepared, and you can think about what your secondary students are going to be doing when they come to school, and then they can become excited about coming back. Another change that comes with that is student testing. We never planned on testing our students for COVID. We only had to test for high contact sports, and I believe we did that for 2 weeks, this week and then last week. But now that we're in the red tier, we no longer have to do that. It's just highly encouraged. But we have no intention on testing students right now unless guidance changes. And then, so what I'm looking at here is one of our parents did a post in a Facebook group and just kind of asked, what questions do you have for the district that haven't already been answered? And that's why I want to start doing these live streams weekly. I really wanted to do one on Facebook and then go to YouTube, but clearly the Facebook one didn't work out so great because my phone's kind of old. But I'll figure something out. I'll get a microphone and I'll start doing it on Facebook and on Instagram. Just any way that I can get out there and connect with as many of you as I possibly can. So the big question that's going around right now is, why are secondary schools not open? And like I said, they're still kind of hammering out the schedule so that it melds really well with our elementary schedule. We just want to ensure that we get our students back in the safest way possible. And thanks, Heather. So our teams are still collaborating. Our secondary administrators, our teachers, our administration up here at the district office, they're looking at all possible angles and trying to cover any questions, any safety concerns, and just trying to figure out the best and most efficient way to get our students in school for the remainder of the school year. Because really what we're looking at on April 6th, when our elementary comes back, we don't have a date for secondary yet, but on April 6th, when our elementary students come back, 44 days is what we're looking at. We're looking at about a month and a half left of school. And the last thing we want to do is disrupt anybody's schedule that they've already had for the last year, and add any stress to our students, to our teachers, to our staff, because there's a lot of companies out there that are struggling with that right now. They had their staff working from home for a long period of time, and so they've eased them back into the environment, because for all of us, I know I worked from home for about 3 months, and it was kind of difficult coming back to get back into that, the social flow. um, and then, okay, Jamie, I see you. We've had 6 months to get a schedule together. That's true in a sense. The most recent guidelines that just came out were on January 14th, that announced an opening for secondary schools. Prior to that, there was no path for our secondaries, and a lot of time was spent on plans to hopefully fit any of the guidance that would come out from the state or from the federal government. But it's really difficult to meet those marks, as it's a moving target. um, and then on the difference between 6 feet and 4 feet, so the basically the way it's going to work with our A and B schedule is the 4 foot rule isn't going to make a huge difference in that, because with an AB schedule, we're splitting up our students enough that the 6 feet's attainable. And so we could, in some of our classrooms, possibly do the 4 foot rule, but when we do that AB split, we're still splitting it right down the middle. We're not going to have one class with 18 students and then one class with only 2 students. We're keeping them both even, and we're able to accomplish that with our 6 foot goal that we have in place. And the 6 foot planning really started back in about the November timeframe, when we were looking at when we were still under the waiver process, trying to figure that out. How are reopening plans developed and implemented, and what is the time allowed for each? So I'll start with the time allowed for each. The state doesn't tell us. Um, Michelle, I will absolutely get to your question. Um, the state doesn't really give us a timeline. They don't say, hey, you need to have this plan done in 2 weeks. You need to have this plan done in a month. Uh, most recently with SB 86, what they told us is you need to have a plan together by March 31st. And then they also gave us a 3-week window with California Safe Schools for All. So now that we're in the red tier, if we were to increase in the next 3 weeks, as long as we have our students back in that 3-week window, then we're okay. If we miss that 3-week window, then we have to close back down. So that's why a lot of, luckily case rates are staying pretty low. And if you look at the tier map, a lot of states are red this week. So I don't think, and I hope that we're not going to be increasing in case rates, but we'll be right back in, at least for elementary, before that 3 weeks hit. And then Michelle, will the district be back full-time in person for the 21-22 school year? We all want nothing more than to see our campuses with students. And with the way that the guidelines are changing, it's really hard to publish any plans, because we could publish something today for next school year, and come June, those guidelines could change, and then we're going to modify our plan. But I can tell you that we have no intention right now on only offering distance learning in the 21-22 school year. The 6 foot rule is the problem with getting kids back, especially. So the issue is fitting all of our students into a classroom at once. With both the 6 foot rule and the 4 foot rule, that becomes extremely difficult. And so that's why we're going to the AB schedule, like a lot of other school districts are. And we are exploring the 4 foot rule, because there are some grade levels where there are less students, and we might be able to get more students in at once. So right now, for our AB schedule that we're doing, we're essentially split halfway down, and really only a portion of our students are coming back, while another portion are staying in distance learning. The 6 foot, 4 foot rule is kind of 4 feet gets us about the same, gets us to about the same place, because although our classrooms are a decent size, there are cabinets in there. Our teachers have to have room to move around, as well as any aids that are in there. And then, how are the reopening plans developed and implemented? So it really starts with the guidance that we receive from the state. And that's sort of where the difficulty lies, not to put all the responsibility on that, because there's a lot that we're responsible for, but like what we ran into with the waiver program, we had nailed down a plan, and it took a while to develop, because they're really just, the guidance was extremely vague. There wasn't a lot for us to go off of, and by the time we were ready and the case rates started dropping, the waiver program went out the window. And luckily, the California Safe Schools for All plan doesn't look like it's going anywhere right now. At least we haven't heard anything. But we find out when everybody else finds out. We don't get a special heads up when the governor or the state superintendent holds a press conference. We're listening right there with you. And so our planning process starts with that. We need to make sure that we can accommodate all of those guidelines, because really we're a public funded school. We're funded by your tax dollars, and we're paid to follow the rules, and we're paid to abide by any guidelines set forth. And I can jump into that. I'll jump back into that. I'm trying to stay up on the chat. Last time the chat got a little away from me. Is the district looking at other successful reopening strategies from districts like Cajon for some guidance? Yes. Our Superintendent Binks, she is in constant contact with superintendents, and they're all collaborating together. They're trying to figure out what the best plan is. And there's no guidebook for this. Nobody's ever done this before. Everybody there, when they're reopening, that is their first try at ever doing this. And so all the time we're trying to pull ideas from them. We've pulled ideas from them for all kinds of different things, for the air purifiers we use, for filtering strategies in our classrooms, to the water bottle fillers. How do we get more hand washing stations? Schedules. Many other school districts have shared their schedules with us, and many of them mirror it, and some of them have asked for our schedules. What does ours look like? How everybody's just looking for answers, and unfortunately right now there just isn't a right answer for everybody. It's a really difficult time, and every single school district is trying the best they can. Is the district pursuing alternative locations? So the alternative locations one is kind of tough, and it might be an option as we roll into next school year. For the remainder of this school year, logistically looking at alternative locations or bringing in portables or tents, really by the time that all falls into place, we're going to be moving into summer. So rolling in next year, that is absolutely something that we can look at. And I know that it's been brought up and it's been discussed with district leadership. I think it's safe to say most parents would appreciate a tentative schedule plan transparently being shared with us and would understand. And I agree with you. I think, we're going to try to be a lot better about sharing information with you. Some things we try not to get, we don't want to get ahead of our school sites. We don't want to get ahead of our staff. We really try to keep them just as informed. And, my plan, I'm still fairly new to this role. It's still been less than a month. And I really want to start pushing things out within 24 hours of guidelines changing, so everybody's aware. As far as sharing tentative schedules or plans, I'll have to talk to the district leadership about that. I know that the issue that lies within that is, sort of what if the plan changes and the previous plan was better. We don't want to sell something essentially to you that we won't be able to fulfill. So that's kind of why we wait until we're sure of what's happening. We want you to be informed, but we don't want to misinform you at the same time. And then, are we planning alternatives ahead of fall? They are. So, along with our elementary reopening, our secondary reopening, and then looking at options for summer school. They're also talking about fall. You know, there's plans that are already circulating within district leadership and within school sites, talking about what fall is going to look like for us and what we may need to do, the things we may need to order, the space we may need to set up to get our students back in the classroom in the safest way possible. And the difficulty with that is, you know, there's things that we could probably push out at some point, but we also don't want to push out too much information, because the last thing we would want is any fall plans we have to sort of intertwine themselves with what we're talking about for summer. And so it's kind of a timing thing also. But you're not going to be moving into the 2021-22 school year with no info. It's not going to be like it was at the beginning of the pandemic, where we were just shut down and we didn't know what was going on. We're going to do better informing you. So I see that I may have missed this in a prior meeting. Why are teachers not okay with cameras in the classroom? Some of that has to do with privacy and releases. So when our students are in the classroom and their face could be on a camera, that's why some students in a lot of classes have their cameras off. If a parent doesn't want their student to be shown on camera, then we have to go by that. And when a teacher's in the classroom and a student could potentially walk in front of the camera, the last thing we would want is any privacy issues. Feels like you're blaming state guidelines for not reopening with more hours. Other districts have to follow the same state guidelines and are offering more hours of instruction per week. So every school is doing it differently. Like I said before, nobody has the perfect answer. Everybody's trying the best they can. And you know, everybody's schedule is going to look different just because it's never been built before. We've been, you know, how many years have we been working on the same school schedule, and then all of a sudden everything this year changed. And so we're trying to find the schedule that fits. It's sort of it's difficult because it's not going to fit everybody. There's not going to be a right answer that works for every single parent or every single family, every single staff member. There just isn't a solution for that right now. Just like anywhere you go, everybody's still figuring it out. Wouldn't that be a parent issue and not a teachers union issue? I'm not going to point blame to anybody. Really, it's just something that our district leadership and school sites have discussed and collaborated on with our teachers and other staff, and decided that wasn't a great route to go. How are our challenges different than those in nearby school districts to get our students in person more or full time? Our challenge, you know, every community is different. Every community's responded to this virus differently, as has every state. And like I said, nobody's going to have the right answer. We're definitely, you know, this is our first go at reopening during the pandemic and actually getting students in the classroom, with the exception of our waiver. And our, you know, if we misstep and we make a plan that is not perfect for everybody, then this is a great time for us to reposition ourselves for the next school year. That way, you know, we're learning just like everybody else. You know, you remember when we first shut down and stores were finally allowed to open, they didn't really have the whole, how many people can come in? How do we control that? People didn't have that figured out. And it's the same situation with school districts. We're all just trying to figure it out, and everybody's trying to put their best foot forward. Nobody is talking about how do we spend less time in the classroom. I can't name one person I've met since I started working here that got into public education to spend time out of the classroom. Parents do have the option to sign. It's part of when at the beginning of the school year you sign a form that has to do with that privacy, and some parents don't want their students to be on camera, and that's perfectly fine. Can I share a goal date for secondary reopen? I cannot right now, but I can tell you that soon, hopefully. I'm incredibly optimistic that that we'll be able to get something to you guys soon. We want to see our secondary students in school before the end of the school year and receive at least a little bit of time on their campuses so our ninth graders and our sixth graders can see what these campuses look like. Other larger districts with more students are opening secondary schools within a week of being in the red tier. Why can't YCJ USD get the same done with less? That's a great question. And like I said, every school district's different. Every single group of staff is different, and everybody is I promise trying their best. And we may not find the right solution, and those districts that have opened, I think it's great that they have. It's amazing to get our students back in the classroom. That's what we're here for. What is the district currently pursuing to achieve full-time in-person learning? The full-time in-person learning is going to be tough, but I know that's the ultimate goal of everybody. Our board members, our teachers, our staff, our leadership, our administrators, everybody wants our students back full-time. There are families that don't feel comfortable going back full-time, and we want to make sure that there's equitable opportunities for those students and families as well. So distance learning, at least for now, is still going to be part of our planning process. Has the district looked into or consulted with local charter or private schools in regards to how they reopened? So we actually have a great relationship with Inland Leaders, and we have consulted with other charter and private schools, but sort of how we were talking about larger districts going in for different times and figuring out their schedule. That's sort of where we're at in the difference between charters and privates. Like Inland Leaders, I know they're getting their students back in school, and that's great, and we're working towards the same thing. But we are much larger, and we have a much larger class size at some of our grade levels. And for example, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Inland Leaders. That's not something I would ever do. But they are about 10% of our size, and so what we're trying to do is figure out options that work for each of our 14 different school sites or school options that meld well with each other. Everybody kind of needs to be on the same page. We can't do a plan for one school and not for another. And that was another question I had received was why isn't SECA, because their class sizes are smaller, opening more? Well, SECA, even though they're a charter school, they are under our district, and the last thing we would want is for them to receive anything special that our other schools don't. We want it to be equitable across the board. So we really want to make sure that each of our school sites are receiving the same amount of in-person time, the class sizes are close, and that our teachers are all receiving the same opportunity to interact with their students. Independent study is absolutely, it's a great program, and we do have independent study. PEP Plus is our K through 8, and then YCA is our 9 through 12. And it's a great option for those that want sort of a different schedule, that maybe the distance learning didn't work for them, the in-person doesn't work. And it's completely equitable. It's just a different program. If that's something that you prefer for your students, then by all means, that is a program you should look into. And I can get you in contact with Mr. Tucci, who runs our PEP Plus program, or with Jason Mills or Shad Kirkland over at the high school about the Yucaipa Connected Academy. Will distance learning continue to be offered for the rest of this academic calendar? Yes, even if we could go all the way to the yellow tier, and we're still going to offer distance learning. We still have to offer distance learning, and I know distance learning is part of our planning process for next year as well. Would the district agree most parents want their kids in-person learning full-time? Absolutely. I think I totally agree with that. I think some parents still aren't comfortable with that, and that's fine. I do get emails. Parents are concerned because distance learning might be going away, and they don't feel safe because of where we're at in the vaccination process. or where we're at with the virus. And everybody feels differently, and that's why it's hard to find a schedule, to find a plan that fits everybody. Why can't you treat each school as its own entity? So we have administrative, basically there's administrative oversight over each one of our schools, and we're a unified school district. That means, we really try to keep all of our schools on the same path. It wouldn't be fair to offer things to one school that we wouldn't offer to another. People, when people come to our schools, and when students enter our schools, they expect it to be equitable. And really, this has been the only year that it's been kind of crazy. Other than that, everybody, it's been, sort of smooth flowing, at least I think, but this year is what really tossed it. Why wouldn't the district suggest those still wanting to stay home utilize the program versus continuing distance learning? Well, distance learning, for one, we're required to still offer distance learning regardless of tier. It's part of the California Safe Schools for All plan. But if that's a program that works for, right now, some surveys, it varies. When we sent out a survey at the end of last calendar year, about 30% of our parents still wanted to stay in distance learning. And then again, it was about 25 to 30 in February. And most recently, we're split pretty half and half. And I understand a big part of that is the schedule, but we still have plenty of parents that want distance learning, and that's absolutely acceptable. Let's see. And we do recommend the independent study program to a lot of parents. If that's something that you think would work better for you, then like I said, I can absolutely get you in contact with who we need to. How will the districts still offer distance learning if the state allowance for DL ends as of June 30th? It's all part of the guidance that's going to come out next year. We're including it in our plan because we're trying to cover all of our bases and not be stuck without some sort of plan, just anticipating what state guidelines are going to dictate. What percentage of parents complained about the possible teacher change? So it really, here's, sort of the thing is, when we hear from parents, most of the time it's when they're concerned. We do hear from parents when they think something's going really great, or when they really appreciate their teacher or a staff member. But sort of when we publish these new plans, that's when we start to hear the concerns. That's when we start to hear the comments. And, with the release of our new schedule, when we released the original schedule back in November and then again in February, it was no different. And so we're trying to reevaluate the sort of the way that we're taking that in, because it's tough. The best way to make it, if we're doing a great job, please tell us we're doing a great job. If we're doing a poor job, by all means, tell us we're doing a poor job. But we're trying to self-correct as we go here. And at this point now, we're just trying to get our students back in the classroom so we don't miss out on that 3-week window should cases go back up. Can we expect to have hybrid for parents who aren't comfortable with going back next week? So we can still expect to have, hybrid on the elementary side for the remainder of this school year. What next school year looks like, still not 100% sure. But once I know something and the table's been slapped, I will absolutely send you a message through Blackboard. How do we implement a new revised schedule than what was voted on without going back for board approval? So at that February 17th meeting, when that schedule was presented, it was presented as a tentative schedule. And the board, we stay in constant contact with the board, even outside of meetings, just to keep them up to date on what we're doing here, what our plans are, and to look for, where they stand on it. Why can't half the class go in the morning for a few hours and the other half go in the afternoon? There are a lot of school districts that are doing that, but again, it's that one size fits all just doesn't apply anymore. Our administration and our team really tried their best to put their right foot forward and build a schedule that would at least get our students into the classroom for the remainder of the school year. So it's tough. It's really hard for everybody. Everybody is making a one-off decision essentially because it's never been done before. So the board sort of, and that's another thing. So the board really, there are many things that they make decisions on, and there are um, a lot of things that we just have to let them know what we're doing. And it didn't necessarily get approval outside of a public meeting. Once we had it, we sent it, but the board was absolutely aware of the schedule change and that the original one was only tentative. Sorry, I'm getting notifications on my desktop here. Why weren't planned schedules being discussed last summer? Um, because there wasn't a plan or a schedule that we could have came forward with. Um, we during last summer there really was minimal guidance on what we could do. We were just shut down. The waiver program didn't come out until we had already started, I believe. I'd have to go back and check, but I think we were already had started the school year once the waiver program was announced. So we really had no basis of how do we set up a schedule? How do we plan to get our students back in without it's sort of like when all the stores were closed. I really I really need to go to this store, but how do I accomplish that when the store is closed? And that's essentially the position we were in. We were closed and we had no way around it, and no light at the end of the tunnel for reopening. I wasn't part of the conversations with the board on the schedule. That was prior to me starting this position. But I can absolutely ask, and what I can say is everybody viewed that schedule, you know, at the district level, at the school site level, to ensure that it would work best for each of our elementary school sites, and try not to disrupt what was going on with our students already. Bottom line is that 3.5 hours of in-class instruction is not enough, and it's clearly a district decision, not a state mandate. The November plan was better. Um, I I would agree with you. I think that everybody wants our students back full time. That's the ideal situation here is a move back to normalcy. Our children have suffered enough throughout this last year, and so all we can do is I look forward to next school year. I really hope it's better. Can you explain the preparation that has already taken place to get the students back in sanitation wise? So there has been a lot of preparation for that, and that's really been since the beginning of the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was extremely difficult to get PPE and get supplies for sanitation. But everybody, companies and providers, they were so quick to correct that, and we were able to get up plexiglass barriers. We have, alcohol wipes for cleaning off desks and cleaning off different items in the classroom. Filtration systems have been upgraded. They've installed water bottle fillers. That's a tough one. That way, I think we've all seen the kid at the playground using the water drinking the water spout, the drinking fountain. That's the word I was looking for. And so our school sites started putting in these water bottle fillers so students can bring in their own water bottle, fill it. And then additionally, our custodians have been working nonstop since the beginning of the pandemic to make sure that everything is as clean as it can be, to make sure everything is sanitized. They got these new sanitation tools that are incredible. It looks like something out of a video game, and they're pros with that thing. They make sure everything is clean. The district received a lot of money recently. How does the district plan to spend this? I am so glad you asked that because it's on my talking points. Money is one of the things I wanted to talk about. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I think it's fair to say that it was pretty common knowledge that public school districts were hurting financially, and then all of a sudden we had to provide all this PPE and purchase air filtration systems and purchase all kinds of basically cleaning supplies. We had cleaning supplies before, but nothing like what we need to have now. And the government saw that gap, and they acted fast on it. And so, some of the different funding that we've received. So from the federal government, we received, shortened. They're called ESSER funds, but it's Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds, and we're told exactly what we have to spend that money on. We're told, a portion of it needs to go to supporting your students in distance learning, and a portion of it needs to go to supporting your students in in-person learning. A portion of it needs to go to hiring. It really is all broken down. And actually, if you go to our March 9th board meeting, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Dr. Vreeman, gave a great presentation on our second interim budget, and it breaks all of that down. It talks about how much money we received from each of these funds, because with each relief act from the federal government, including the most recent one, we received these emergency funds. With the most recent ones out of HR 1319. But those ones, we're probably not going to see those funds for 60 to 90 days, but those go straight back to the students. They're going to safety supplies. At the beginning of this school year, last school year, we only had about 3 or 4 applications that we paid for within Clever. And then once we had to roll into distance learning, we had to purchase nearly 61 different applications this year, and each of those cost a good deal of money. And our earlier board meetings, those are all on there, and the price that we paid for them. That's where a lot of the money is going, and it's a one-time thing, so we can't really set up a sustainable. It's not, they're not sustainable funds. It's not something that's going to be reoccurring in the district bank account. They're specifically for, COVID relief, just as the government intended. And they tell us pretty close to exactly how we're going to spend them. I'm confused on why there was no discussion, though. It's the district's job to provide a public service in regards to education. I absolutely agree with you, and it is our job to prepare for all types of scenarios, but I don't know if anybody saw this coming. It was sort of a surprise to everybody, and we'll know better for the future. That's the only thing we can do, is we can better prepare ourselves. I appreciate you keeping us informed. I think these lives would be more productive if there were some type of update versus basic we were working on it. When I have an update, I'll give it to you. I'm still going to be doing these lives weekly, just to talk and sort of, I'd like to build a relationship with everybody. I'm going to be doing this for a while, hopefully. So weekly, if we could just get together and talk this stuff out, and when we have answers, I will absolutely give you the answers. I want the answers too. Seems like we're waiting for restrictions to lessons rather than having a plan in place in the event we have to adjust. Can you explain what alternatives are being considered? So for next school year, what we're looking at is, I don't want to talk about it too much just because it's so early in the planning process and so much can change, but we're really trying to have something there this time. We've learned from the beginning of this pandemic and with the waiver process that we need to have something in the chute and ready to go. Whether it's ready to be released or not, I can't say that, but I can promise you that they're working. Has there been any known contamination cases during our current cohort? I'm actually not 100% sure. I would have to find out, and I can get back to you guys. I will bring that up in the next live. Why is Yucaipa so different? Beaumont Secondary is going back April 6th. Can we go talk to them? We have talked to Beaumont, actually, and they just got a new superintendent, and Superintendent Binks has already been in contact with her and is working on building that relationship. But the interim superintendent that they had, I know she's talked to them on multiple occasions, and it's sort of the same thing. The one size doesn't fit all here. Every school district's going to be different, and comparisons are tough. We compare ourselves to other districts daily as other districts compare themselves to us. Some districts that have different schedules, they're receiving a lot of the same pushback. Why are you not mirroring YCJ USD schedule. We're in that situation where it's really hard to choose the right answer. Would it be possible for us to submit questions on a Google Doc for these types of videos since some of us have to work? Yeah, absolutely. That's something I wanted to talk about too, is changing the time. I'm more than willing to do this at any time. I'll do it in the evenings if that's better for everybody. I will do it in the morning. Just let me know. You can shoot me an email. I can set up a form. I do have, if you go to our COVID-19 and reopening and school reopening website, there's an FAQ submission form. If you just want to throw it on there, that's totally fine. I agree with these other parents. I'd expect the district board to have plans A, B, and C ready to go on possible scenarios. Why are we waiting until we're out of these restrictive tiers? And that's absolutely, like I said, we've learned from the past, and now we're looking at different scenarios for us to return. But it becomes difficult to plan because we have no idea what the guidelines are going to be. At this point in the school year, we can hopefully be a little more optimistic about the guidelines, saying, hey, we're going to continue to loosen up. California's getting a lot closer with following the Centers for Disease Control and their guidelines, because they keep pushing out, they keep loosening their guidelines, and we're hoping to see the same thing here. So we're, for the remainder of this school year, we're trying to get our students back in, and we're trying not to make many changes, but we'll self-direct as we need to. And then moving into the next year, we're looking at different options for our students to come back in person. Schools may reopen fully for in-person instruction. Local school officials will decide whether and when that will occur. That is true. That line where it says schools may fully reopen was a little misleading, because there still are parts of the California Safe Schools for All plan that we have to follow, and we have that guidebook linked, and it does limit some of the things that we can do and can't do. And then it talks, when SB 98 came out, that discussed instructional minutes, and so we're trying to figure out ways to get all these instructional minutes to fit, in person and distance learning, something that fits for everybody. A one pager that states how we're different student size than other nearby districts. It's all on the California Safe Schools hub. You can see the total enrollment size for other school districts. You can see discussion, but this is a good opportunity to kind of talk about the Brown Act. The Brown Act was enacted in California, and it limits what legislative bodies can talk about, either in a board meeting, one-on-one, what can be on the agenda. It's pretty long, but it has a lot of really great info on there, and it talks about how the board can communicate with individuals that come to the board meeting, the way public comment is given, the way that board members interact with each other. They really are pretty limited by the Brown Act, and I'm more than willing to talk more about the Brown Act. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend to be. I have, my background is, my major was political science, so I guess that's sort of like an entryway, but I do not interpret law in any way. But we can have a video about the Brown Act, and I can cover some of the basic points and why our board is so limited on certain things. What are the limits we're having trouble adhering to specifically? It's really the physical distancing thing. We just don't have the space to get every single student back in the classroom right now. And on top of that, we have to, worry about the ingress and egress and the routes within the schools. Shouldn't the district have those facts and figures to lean on? Absolutely. And, it goes into conversations with other districts. But again, it's one of those, is what's working for one district going to work for us? Each school site's built differently. That's a conversation that's being had with our secondaries. Some of our schools don't have the same entryways or multiple entryways. Like Chapman Heights is great. It's incredibly open, but we need to make sure that when our students are coming in to the schools, that the physical distancing can still be maintained. Is there going to be a special board meeting soon? City is sticking it out in distance learning for the rest of the year and moving forward into next year, um, looking at options, and that falls right into that. There's no perfect answer for every single school district. If it's physical distancing, then why aren't we using 4 foot as the guideline? Even with the 4 foot cutoff, we're limited on space. The 4 foot guideline may help certain class sizes, but in order to keep it equitable across the board, because last thing we would want is our fifth graders to miss out on something that it's tough. And we're going off 6 feet for students right now. The 4 feet we're able to do if we have absolutely tried 6 feet, but what we really need is the physical distancing to sort of go away depending on what tier we move into, and it doesn't right now. Connectivity issues. We had some weird power flickers. Mesa View's power went out today, and so that could be what it is. Throw that in there. Are some of the funds newly allowed for the district to pursue alternative locations? They are. The funds are to get our students back in person. A large portion of them. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm attending a webinar tomorrow talking about the new round of funding that's coming our way in the next 60 to 90 days. But currently, I believe it was the Emergency and Secondary Schools Relief Emergency Relief Fund 2, the second round that we got, along with when everybody got their stimulus. We can the 85% of that has to go to getting students in person. So if a portion of that money needs to go to alternative options, then we're absolutely going to use it. We've tried the 6 feet and it's not possible, clearly, because so luckily one of our board members, is an engineer and was able to map out a classroom and then how the desks fit in there. And we were able to visualize that for one of our classrooms. And along with that, Dr. Vreeman, our assistant soup of business services, has been to multiple classrooms and has measured. And the 6 feet to 4 feet difference, if everybody wanted to come back, if everybody wanted to come back, we still couldn't fit, but I appreciate it. I'm pushing it forward. Everything I get in here, I push forward. And I do know that Superintendent Binks has already been talking to the county about the 4 foot. Many of us feel like our hands are tied and our children's education is suffering. What is the district going to do different to keep us informed? I agree with you that it's been incredibly hard for all of our children. And some of the plans that I have moving forward are more of these lives. And then you could ask our district leadership. I push on them incredibly hard to get messages out. Because it does need to go to our staff first, and then it needs to go to our administrators. It needs to go to our board to make sure that the message is the message that we want to be sending. Because I'm only one guy. I could think that my writing sounds great, but I'm completely biased. But I do promise you, we're really trying. My goal is to, if there's a guideline change or any kind of change, 24 hours, we get it out to you. Like the California Safe Schools for All plan, if that were to happen again, like it came out on January 15th, I want something to go out on January 15th. Dr. Fauci says 3 feet is okay. Unfortunately, the federal government does give recommendations, but we still have to follow what California says. And they have not said anything about 3 feet yet. Supposedly they're announcing something new next week, but no clue what it is. No idea if it has to do with the tiers. Really, just know something's coming. Just don't know what. How can we have the district consider drafting a contingency plan, the help plan for multiple scenarios that would increase trust? I think that's a great idea, and I will absolutely bring that up. I'll talk to Superintendent Binks right after this, and I think it's a great plan. It's a great idea. Has the district considered more mental health counselors within the schools? That I don't specifically know about. I can find out. Julie, that would be great if you could email them to me. That would be super. More mental health counselors within the schools. We did recently roll out. I got to give a shout out to Melissa over in Ed Services. She built this amazing mental health resources website for us. It's got basically, our partnership with Care Solace. It's got a link to them. It's got a link to a bunch of other community resources, as well as the contact info for each of our school site counselors. And, I can get back to you about that, but really the best place that you can look to know if we are is on edjoin.org. That's where all jobs are posted. And I will put that in here. We're always hiring. If you want to come work for the school district, if you want to work for a school site, go check out edjoin.org. We're also going to have an ad going out in the Newsmere, not just to Yucaipa, but to the entire Newsmere region. And it's going to have a list of the jobs that we're offering. And if you have any questions about a job we're offering, shoot me an email and I will get you in contact with HR, because they want to hire. There are a lot of positions open on edjoin.org right now. You just go on there, type in Yucaipa, and then it'll be a mixture of us and inland leaders that will be the only ones that pop up on that list. Why wasn't a plan put in place months ago? Well, really, January 14th, that's when we found out the path to secondaries. And at that point, we were all talking, about plans. At least, our district leadership was, about how, because at that point, we were looking at different paths for our elementary to get in under the purple tier. And then that's when we found out secondaries would be eligible in the red tier. And if you think back to January, the red tier seemed unattainable. That's when we were skyrocketing. I remember that. And, even our district office was closed for a period of 2 weeks because of an outbreak. It really seemed like it was all over the place then. And you're right, Heather. Melissa is amazing. If you want to go to our district website, yucaipaschools.com, and check out that mental health resources website, she really put a lot of really great information on there, and she did an amazing job. She did ask me, she was worried. She's like, did I put too much pink on there? But I think it looks great. Would the board consider an active parent to seat as a member similar to a student member? I can bring that up to them. And I also would have to we'd have to refer to the Brown Act. But if you want to get more involved, really a great way to do it is our parent task force. We have a parent task force for our Spanish speaking families on Mondays at 3. And then we also have one on Fridays at 3 for our English speaking parents. And what I can do is, if you just shoot me an email, you want to be on the parent task force, we'll get you in. It's an opportunity to get some one-on-one time with Superintendent Binks. And I sit in there too, usually quietly. I just type, and she shares sort of what her vision is moving forward and what kind of plans we have going on. Can you please thank all the administrative staff for all their hard work? Having to deal with parents that want what's best for their child is hard to do. YCJ USD has been very responsive. That's something I really wanted to get to at the end of this video. And one of the questions I got was, how can parents be more involved? It really, the parent task force is a great way to start. Just communicating with us, what you have been doing, advocating for your students, that's a great way to participate in what we're doing, because we take your feedback to heart. And whether it doesn't seem like it's making a difference right now, I promise you it's making a difference in future plans that we're doing, and when we're working on developing them. All of that goes into it. And that's sort of my, that's my YCJ USD answer, but my Lance answer would be, how can you help support our schools, and how can you help get our students back into the classroom? It may not quicken the return to classroom, but we could just continue to be kind to one another. It's been really hard for everybody this entire last year. That includes our teachers, our staff, our students, our parents. Our entire community has been affected in numerous ways that we really couldn't even cover every single way. And that's sort of been what's crazy about the pandemic. Personally, my daughter turns 3 next month. It's okay. I don't think she'll see this. She turns 3 next month, and she completely missed out on a second birthday. The first year and a half of her life, I was in the Marine Corps, and where we were stationed, not a lot of family wanted to come visit, but so she kind of missed out on a lot that first year and a half, and I was excited to get out and have my family come check out my new hometown, and then COVID hit. So everybody has a story like that, and mine's not that bad. Some people, our staff, teachers, parents, family, people have lost loved ones. So just being kind to each other is the best way that you could help that you could help out right now. If you have a teacher that's been doing an amazing job and you haven't talked to her, you haven't talked to her or him the entire school year, just send a thank you if they're doing a great job. When our elementary schools, when your students are getting back on campus on April 6th, tell a custodian thank you. Tell somebody working at the front desk thank you. Just be kind to one another. What difference did it make for us parents who spoke at the board meeting? President Snellings said he'd be open to more negotiations with the union. What has happened since the meeting? What plans have been made? So in order to move forward on our secondary plans, that's what we've been focusing on. A quick change to elementary right now would sort of take away from the energy and time that our team's putting into our secondary planning. So we really want to meet that April 6th deadline of at least getting that April 6th goal of at least getting our students onto campus and then push forward so that we can get our secondary students on campus. Let's see, what else do I have on here? How about this? What's the plan if someone tests positive for COVID? That's where the stable group recommendation from the state comes into play. So fortunately with the stable groups, and it'll be easier at the elementary level, but still absolutely doable at the secondary level. If someone tests positive in one of our groups, whether it's group A or B, or it's a class, we're going to be able to let everybody that was in that group know, hey, you may have had close contact with someone, but hopefully with our physical distancing, with the sanitation measures we've taken, and with people wearing masks, we'll be able to avoid a mass spread. But Julie, for now, what we're moving forward with is the schedule we've got. And then we also will have a wellness room. So if we have a student that tests positive, or a staff member that tests positive, we're able to get them to an area where they're not, commingling, and we can get them tested. Will the plan for secondary schools have them on campus for at least 4 hours a day, even if only 2 days a week? I really can't talk about the secondary schedule right now because I haven't really seen it myself, and I probably won't get a great look at it until it's been completed. And once our secondary schedule is good, I am pushing something out to you. What percentage of the teachers have gotten fully vaccinated? I don't know the exact percentage, but what I can tell you is Jill Castanon in HR, she ran a great vaccination program. She coordinated all of the appointments for our staff. She ensured that everybody that wanted the vaccine has been afforded an opportunity to receive it. I just got my first shot last week, I think, or the week before, and then I'm getting my second shot the first week of spring break. And really, I'm sort of in the last group to get it because we're up here at the district office. But we've really, Jill did a great job at working with Dr. Barry and his wife, who's also a nurse, Julie Berry. They all work together on getting our school district vaccinated. Glad to hear secondary plans are in the works. Thank you for this format where you can ask questions. I appreciate your efforts, but I'm also immensely frustrated at the same time for my kids. I hear you. I do. I absolutely hear you. And I am more than willing. I'm going to keep doing this every week, even if nobody shows up. I kind of like hearing myself talk. So this is a great job for me. I secondary plans are in the works, and I so hope to have something to you soon. I really I press for you guys so I can get messages out to you. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it. I do. I want nothing more than to push stuff out to you guys because you know, I really, I don't like seeing, that's sort of why I started doing what I was doing at the beginning of the school year. There were a lot of questions going unanswered on Facebook, and I wanted to represent us a little bit. What other platform will you develop to have timely communication and information? So I'm working on tightening up a web page where we're going to have everything sort of locally housed, and then, leveraging social media. Social media has been such a great tool for everybody. And then Blackboard is our mass messenger. And yeah, the FAQ. So I have an FAQ form, but I'm trying to think of other ways. And if you guys have a great idea on how, hey, this is how I could talk to Lance. This is how I could relay information to him and hear back from district leadership, and let me know. But we do have a comments box on our website, and I get an email every time somebody leaves a comment. You just got to make sure you put your email address in there so I can reach back out to you, or at least your name so I can look up your email. But these lives are going to be one way to do it, and I'll modify times. I'll do it twice a day if I need to. Whatever you guys need, whatever I can do to support you, I'm here to advocate for you and advocate for our team and just push information out. Is the board taking spring break off? Or are they going to continue to work? So our administrators have they didn't get spring break last year, and a lot of them are not taking spring break this year. And they're continuing to push because the ultimate goal is to get our secondary students back in. Like I said earlier, nobody got into public education to not have students in the classroom. Everybody has the same goal here. Everybody wants our students back in the safest way possible and in the way that's going to be most conducive to our current living situations. It's kind of crazy right now. And Facebook's great. Not everybody's on Facebook, which is too bad. I like to tell people that I have like the dream millennial job. I get paid to be on Facebook. But I do have comments sort of limited on our district Facebook right now. But we could figure something out, and we'll figure out maybe a better way to tackle this. And it does such a huge audience, and Instagram's been great too. I get a lot of really good engagement on Instagram. So I've thought about doing lives on there, just like, Joe Mead, the principal at Sika. I know he does his Instagram lives, and people love that. I'm all about jumping on board where I can. Lori, I hope your child is on campus soon too. I do. I want nothing more. I started this job a month before the pandemic, and not once have I been to a school site and seen kids. So I'm looking forward to that day too. The other night I recorded myself reading a story for a kindergartner class, and I would have much rather been in front of the class reading the story. I am absolutely pushing Superintendent Binks to make videos for you guys. I know I love getting out here and answering the questions for you and getting FaceTime with you, but everybody wants the answer from the superintendent, and that is absolutely understandable. And so, as she has time, these parent task force meetings, if people are able to jump in, shoot me an email and I'll get you in there. But I also just bought this fancy ring light, so I'm like, a TikTok influencer now, and we could use it whenever we're making videos. And I'm also looking at getting some video editing software and just kind of, building a more robust communications setup. Appreciate it, Heather. Thank you. Really, our teachers and our staff at the school sites, they are incredible. If you could just take a minute out of your day to send one of them a great email about how they've positively impacted yours or your student's life this year, they more than deserve it. They are incredible people. Our trial nutrition team has provided 1.8 million meals to our community, and that doesn't include the big 21-day meal that they were dishing out today. And I think for the next 13 minutes, they're still giving it out. Our facilities team is incredible. Just everybody, I promise everybody is working towards the same goal, and that's to get your students back in the classroom. I have no doubt that our teachers would love nothing more than to come into a classroom full of students where they can interact and they can see everybody's face and they don't have to worry about technology issues. And gosh, coming from the technology department, I'll tell you, technology's tough. Um, you know, it really forced everybody into using technology. Everybody learned how to use Google Meet and everybody learned how to use Zoom, and everybody did a great job adjusting really quickly. If you didn't like technology before, COVID did not give you a chance to avoid it now. But our staff did such a great job. Our teachers did an incredible job. Like I said, 61 distance learning apps we purchased this year. I think we're up to a total of 67 in our library now. And that's pretty incredible that not only are our subject matter experts, but they've also had to learn all these different applications and squeeze that into their time and then teach their students how to use it through Google Meet or through Zoom, which I think we've all figured out at this point. I mean, Facebook Live didn't work out so great for me today. I think plenty of our teachers have ran into those same struggles. So yeah, just to circle back on that, if you see or talk to a staff member, a teacher, please just tell them thank you. And I know that they will tell you the same. Our parents have put in so much time this year. It was new for our parents too. I absolutely feel for you guys. My daughter's only 3, not old enough to be in school yet, and I can only imagine what it's like trying to balance a job and try to get your student online and work through technical issues, especially if you're, weren't technologically savvy in the beginning. You might be able to go work for your company's IT department now, or pick up an IT job. Which, speaking of, check out edjoin.org. We might be looking for somebody. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love technology. Technology is great, but I love interacting with everybody too. How does the current decision from the San Diego judge affect our schools? It affects all of California and not just San Diego. It's tough how that's to see how that's going to play out. I did read that, and I saw that as well. And those kinds of things, we hear about those too. Our district leadership discusses them, and it'll be interesting to see how it's going to change. It's hard to make a move one way, especially when we're publicly funded. We it's not sustainable for us to make decisions that might not be in our best interest with those that we've elected above us. All right, what else we got, guys? Checking my list here to see if I covered everything. And if you want to see a different part of the district office, by all means, let me know. I'll try to figure out my phone streaming thing, and I can roam around. I can pull people into these live sessions. If there's somebody you just want to meet, um, I'll steal them for a few minutes and I'll get them on here so they can talk about something good. And next week, if you have any ideas, if you want me to cover anything specific next week, um, I'll probably be doing this again. I'll look at my schedule. I'm really trying to squeeze this in when I can. If after working hours is perfectly fine. If that works for you guys, that way I can reach the most amount of people. Because looks like we're only at about 23 people. I've been talking for a while though. I would get tired of hearing my voice. Appreciate it, Heather. Heather's being extra nice. I appreciate it. Well, if you guys don't have anything else for me, I look forward to seeing you next week. And I am going to put my email in the chat. I could spell. Oh, well, let's not get crazy, guys. That's my email. Here's my phone number. I do roam around a lot during the day. Um, so if I don't answer my phone, just leave me a message and I will get back to you when I can. I'm not by my desk a whole lot, but I have my email on my phone and on my watch. So I usually try to get back really quickly if I can. But like, last week I had an abundance of emails and it took me a little bit to get back. If I don't get back to you in 48 hours, email me again and say, hey, what the heck, man? All right, with that, I hope everybody has a great St. Patrick's Day tonight. And if you have any questions, please email me. Feel free to call me. Do whatever you need to do. I'm here for you guys. Have a good night.